I came home early and found my 7-year-old son alone with half a cold potato while my in-laws feasted at my table. Be grateful we put up with him, they said. Then he opened a notebook that revealed what they had really been doing behind my back. The place at the table. I had not planned to arrive at the farmhouse until Saturday, but the hospital canceled several imaging appointments, and my supervisor told me to take Friday afternoon off because my 7-year-old son Luke was spending part of the summer with my husband's family at the old house I owned outside Gettysburg. I decided to surprise everyone with groceries, fruit, yogurt, and the cinnamon rolls he loved. I parked beside the maple trees and carried the paper bags up the porch steps, already imagining Luke running toward me. Instead, before I opened the door, I heard my mother-in-law's voice from the kitchen. That boy is not sitting at this table until he understands where he belongs. Inside, Evelyn sat with my sister-in-law Bridget and Bridget's 8-year-old son Connor. Their plates held fried chicken, macaroni and cheese, warm rolls, and the chocolate pie I had bought the week before. Luke was sitting alone on a worn sofa across the room, his shoulders folded inward, holding a plastic plate with half of a cold baked potato on it. When he saw me, he did not smile. He moved the plate behind his back. That small movement told me more than any explanation could have. Evelyn stood quickly and smoothed her blouse. Megan, honey, we were not expecting you. Why did you not call? I set the bags down, knelt in front of Luke, and touched the potato. It was stiff and dry. Why is he eating over here, and why are the rest of you having dinner while he has this? Evelyn gave the tired sigh she used whenever she wanted someone else to feel unreasonable. He is being disciplined. He ran through my flower bed, slammed doors, and took Connor's things. Children need consequences. Luke stared at the floor. The ball rolled into the flowers. I did not stomp on them. Grandma said I was a burden and she did not want to look at me while they ate. Listen to that, Evelyn snapped. He lies so easily. I turned to Connor, whose plate was full. Was Connor disciplined too? Bridget laughed and picked up her phone. My son knows how to behave. Luke is always restless and Mom is doing you a favor by keeping him. You should be grateful she puts up with it. 2 weeks earlier, Evelyn had insisted that Luke spend July with her. I had stocked the refrigerator, left grocery money, and bought games for both boys. Standing there, I understood that my generosity had not protected my child. It had simply made their table more comfortable. I dropped the potato in the trash. You have 2 hours to pack. Evelyn's face went pale. Excuse me. Your ride will be here at 2:30. After that, I am locking the house and changing the alarm code. Bridget shoved back her chair. This house belongs to Patrick. You cannot throw us out. I bought it 4 years before I married Patrick. My name is the only one on the deed. She pointed toward Luke. You are willing to ruin your marriage because a child did not get a piece of chicken. I took my son's cold hand. No, you damaged his family when you decided he had to earn the right to eat in my home. Agar a puri story ka sa parts isi terabina. Comma or full stop ka chade hain too. Main baki parts be easy format. Main card dunga. I walked Luke upstairs without saying another word. His little backpack was sitting on the bed exactly where I had left it 2 weeks earlier. It looked and touched. Buddy, I said softly, can you tell me what has been happening? Luke hesitated. Then he opened the backpack and pulled out a small blue notebook with worn corners. I wrote everything, he whispered. Dad said when people don't believe you, write it down because paper remembers. My heart stopped. The first page was dated the day after I had dropped him off. Grandma said I was not allowed to eat breakfast with everyone because Connor needed the table more than me. The next page. Grandma said I could only have 1 sandwich because I cost too much money. Another page. Connor broke the lamp, but Grandma blamed me and made me stand outside for an hour. Each page became harder to read. Luke had written everything in careful 7-year-old handwriting. Some pages even had little drawings. One showed the dining table with 4 smiling faces. and one tiny stick figure sitting alone on the couch with a potato. I could barely breathe. Then I reached a page that made my hands shake. Grandma said, "Mommy loves work more than me, and maybe she won't come back if I keep being bad." Tears blurred my vision. My sweet little boy had been carrying this pain alone while I trusted the people who promised to care for him. Downstairs, I heard Evelyn laughing as if nothing had happened. That laugh was the last thing I needed to hear. I closed the notebook, wiped my eyes, and looked at Luke. "You did nothing wrong," I told him. "Not one single thing. And I promise you no one will ever make you feel unwanted again." Luke nodded slowly and slipped his small hand into mine. For the first time since I arrived, I saw a tiny spark of hope return to his face. Then the doorbell rang. Their ride had arrived, and I was about to make sure this was the last day they ever treated my son like he did not belong. I carried Luke downstairs with the blue notebook tucked under my arm. The room fell silent the moment Evelyn saw it. Her smile disappeared. "What is that?" she asked. Luke answered before I could. "My notebook." Evelyn's face tightened. "You've been spying on us." I looked at her in disbelief. A 7-year-old writing about his day is not spying. She crossed her arms. "Children exaggerate. You can't believe every silly thing he writes." I opened the notebook to the page with the drawing of the dinner table. "This doesn't look exaggerated." Bridget rolled her eyes. "He always wants attention." I turned another page. "Grandma said I cost too much money." Another page. "Connor got ice cream, but..." I watched from the window because Grandma said rewards are only for good children. The room became painfully quiet. Connor lowered his head and whispered, "Grandma, Luke is telling the truth." Bridget stared at her son. "Connor." He looked at me with frightened eyes. I didn't want Luke to sit alone. Grandma said if I shared my food, I would be punished too. Evelyn's confident expression finally cracked. "He's confused," she said quickly. "He's just a child." "No," I replied calmly. "He's a witness." Just then another vehicle pulled into the driveway. Patrick stepped out. He had come home a day early from his business trip after I left him a short message. "We need to talk about your mother. Come home now." He walked inside, looked around the room, then noticed Luke standing beside me. "What happened?" he asked. Luke didn't answer. Instead, he quietly handed his father the blue notebook. Patrick read the first few pages, then the next. With every page, his face grew paler. When he finally looked up, his eyes settled on his mother. His voice was calm, but it carried a weight no one in the room had ever heard before. "Mom, ... Tell me why my son wrote all of this." No one spoke, not even Evelyn. Patrick stood in the middle of the kitchen, the blue notebook still open in his hands. His mother finally broke the silence. "Patrick, you know children make things up when they don't get their way." He didn't answer. Instead, he turned another page. A small folded receipt slipped out and landed on the floor. I picked it up. It was from the grocery store 3 days earlier. The total was almost $200. I frowned. "I gave you money for Luke's food. Why were you buying all this?" Evelyn reached for the receipt, but I pulled it away. Patrick looked inside one of the kitchen cabinets. It was filled with snacks, cereal, juice boxes, and cookies. Almost everything I had bought for Luke was untouched. "So where did my son get half a cold potato?" he asked quietly. No one answered. Luke tugged gently on my sleeve. "Mom, ... He pointed toward the pantry. "There are more." I opened the pantry door. On the bottom shelf sat a small cardboard box with Luke's name written across it. Inside were canned vegetables, instant oatmeal packets, stale crackers, and several potatoes. Nothing else. My heart shattered. "You made him eat from his own box?" I whispered. Evelyn folded her arms. "He needed to learn responsibility." Patrick slowly closed the pantry door. "No," he said. "You wanted him to feel unwanted." For the first time in years, his mother had no reply. He walked to the front door and opened it. "You need to leave." Evelyn stared at him. "You're choosing her over your own mother." Patrick shook his head. "I'm choosing my son." As Evelyn and Bridget carried their suitcases onto the porch, Evelyn turned back one last time. "You'll regret this." Patrick wrapped his arm around Luke's shoulders. "The only thing I regret is believing my child wasn't safe with his own family." The car pulled away, disappearing down the long gravel road. The house was finally quiet. But neither Patrick nor I realized that the biggest secret wasn't in the kitchen. It was hidden inside the last few pages of Luke's notebook, and it was about to change everything we thought we knew. That night, after Luke finally fell asleep, Patrick and I sat at the kitchen table with the blue notebook between us. Neither of us spoke for several minutes. Then I turned to the last few pages. The handwriting looked shakier than before. "Grandma and Aunt Bridget keep talking when they think I am asleep." I kept reading. "Grandma said if Mom and Dad keep fighting, she might get to keep me here forever." Patrick looked at me in disbelief. "What does she mean by that?" I turned the page. "Grandma said she tells Dad I am happy here and tells Mom I miss Dad more than her. She lies to both of them." A chill ran through the room. Every week Evelyn had called me saying Luke was having the best summer of his life. At the same time, she had been telling Patrick that I was too busy with work and that Luke barely asked about me. She had been trying to turn us against each other. Then I reached the final page. There was no drawing, only one sentence. "Grandma said one day this house will belong to Connor because he deserves it more than me." I slowly closed the notebook. Everything suddenly made sense. The pressure to let Luke stay all summer. The constant excuses for keeping him longer. The way Bridget acted as if the farmhouse already belonged to her family. They had never been interested in helping us. They wanted control of the house and believed pushing Luke aside would make that easier. Patrick pushed back his chair. "I've defended my mother for years," he said quietly. "Never again." The next morning, his phone rang. It was Evelyn. He looked at the screen for a moment before answering. Her first words were exactly what I expected. "Patrick, your wife has poisoned you against your own family." Patrick's voice remained calm. "No, Mom. You did that all by yourself." Then he ended the call. But less than an hour later, another knock echoed through the farmhouse door. This visitor wasn't family. It was someone carrying an envelope that would expose an even bigger secret Evelyn had been hiding for years. Patrick opened the front door. A middle-aged man in a gray suit stood on the porch holding a large envelope. "Mrs. Megan Carter?" he asked. "Yes. My name is Robert Hayes. I am an attorney. I have been trying to reach your mother-in-law for 3 days." He handed me the envelope. "It concerns this property." Patrick and I looked at each other before opening it. Inside were copies of legal documents. One page immediately caught my attention. Someone had filled out paperwork claiming that Evelyn had lived in the farmhouse as the primary resident for several years. Another document requested information about transferring certain property rights. My stomach tightened. "She tried to claim my house," I whispered. Mr. Hayes nodded. "The paperwork was never approved because your name is the only one on the deed." But someone was clearly preparing to challenge ownership. Patrick closed his eyes. "So this wasn't just about Luke." "No," the attorney replied. "Using the child to establish long-term residency would have made their story appear stronger if a dispute ever reached court." I felt sick. Every invitation to stay longer. Every excuse to keep Luke with them. Every attempt to make me work extra shifts. It had all been part of a much bigger plan. Luke slowly walked into the room, holding his blue notebook. He looked at me with worried eyes. "Mom, are we losing our house?" I knelt beside him and hugged him tightly. "No, sweetheart. This house is yours and mine, and nobody is ever taking it away." Mr. Hayes smiled gently. "I have already reported the false paperwork. They won't get another chance." As he left, Patrick locked the front door. For the first time in weeks, the farmhouse finally felt safe. But our peace lasted only until sunset. A police cruiser slowly pulled into the driveway. An officer stepped out and asked one question that made my heart stop. "Does Evelyn Parker live here?" When I answered no, the officer looked down at the file in his hands. "Then you need to know why we're looking for her." The officer removed his hat and looked at Patrick and me with a serious expression. "We've been trying to locate Evelyn Parker since this afternoon." Patrick frowned. "Why?" The officer opened the file in his hands. "We received several complaints involving forged signatures, false property documents, and financial fraud." My heart skipped a beat. Does this have anything to do with our farmhouse? "It might. Your address appears in some of the paperwork." Patrick invited him inside. The officer carefully spread several copies across the kitchen table. I immediately recognized Evelyn's handwriting. Then I saw something that made my blood run cold. My signature, or at least a poor imitation of it. Someone had tried to sign my name on documents I had never seen before. I never signed these. We believe that the signatures don't match the originals on file. Patrick looked stunned. "My own mother did this." The officer nodded. "We're also investigating reports that she borrowed money from several people by claiming she would soon own this property." Patrick covered his face with his hands. "I can't believe this." Luke quietly walked into the kitchen. He looked at the papers, then pointed to one of them. I saw Grandma practicing Mom's name. Every adult in the room turned toward him. "One?" Luke thought for a moment. "The day she told me to stay in my room because grown-ups were talking." The officer wrote down every word. "Thank you, Luke. That helps more than you know." After he left, Patrick sat beside our son. "I'm so sorry. I should have protected you." Luke wrapped his little arms around his father. "We're together now." Patrick's eyes filled with tears. For the first time in weeks, Luke smiled. Not because the nightmare was over, but because he finally knew his parents believed him. 3 days later, the phone rang again. This time it wasn't Evelyn. It was the county courthouse, and the woman on the line had news that would bring everything Evelyn had worked for crashing down. 3 days later, I answered the phone. "Mrs. Carter?" The woman asked. "Yes. My name is Diane Brooks from the county courthouse. I'm calling to let you know that the investigation into the property documents has been completed." I held my breath. "And every document filed under Evelyn Parker's name has been declared fraudulent." I closed my eyes in relief. "So it's over." "Not quite," Diane replied. "The district attorney has decided to move forward with criminal charges." Patrick looked at me as I placed the call on speaker. The woman continued. "We also uncovered something else." "What is it?" Patrick asked. Evelyn submitted statements claiming she had been financially supporting Luke for years. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "That's impossible. I paid for everything." "We know," Diane said. "We found her bank records, grocery receipts, and transfer confirmations. They completely contradict her claims." Patrick shook his head. "She lied about her own grandson." "There is one more thing," Diane added. "Because of the false filings, the court has issued a permanent order preventing Evelyn or Bridget from making any future claim against your farmhouse. For the first time since that terrible afternoon, I felt like I could finally breathe. That evening, Patrick and I took Luke outside. We carried a brand new wooden picnic table into the backyard beneath the old maple trees. Luke looked at it curiously. "What's this for?" I smiled. "It's our new family table." Patrick knelt beside him. "And there's one rule." Luke tilted his head. "What rule?" Patrick gently pulled out the chair in the middle. "No one in this family ever eats alone again." Luke's eyes filled with tears. He hugged both of us as tightly as he could. That night, we shared pizza, laughed together, and watched the sunset from the backyard. For the first time in a long time, our house truly felt like a home. As I watched Luke laughing, I realized something. The greatest revenge wasn't throwing Evelyn out. It wasn't the investigation. It wasn't the criminal charges. The greatest revenge was giving our son the love, safety, and place at the table that no one would ever be able to take away. The end. Thank you for reading. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more emotional, family, and revenge stories. See you in the next story.